Hi guys, Josh here, welcome to Frames Per Second. Today we're doing a little photo shoot with Emma, and we're just shooting a whole lot of Kodak stuff. So we'll be shooting my Mamiya 645 with some Kodak Portra 400 VC. Now this is 10 years expired, or actually maybe 11 now. And so we'll be overexposing it, and just having some fun, seeing how it turns out. So Kodak Portra 400 has quickly become one of the most popular films of the current era. And for good reason. It's a great film. Amazing skin tones, nice grain, good clarity, sharpness. But it does always lean more towards a certain color palette, favoring certain tones, obviously skin tones, going for the more earthy colors. And while it's great at that, there's a lot of colors on the spectrum that don't seem to get as much love as the earthier tones that the film brings out quite nicely. And me, as a lover of color, always kind of wondered what if Kodak released a version of film that was color negative and high speed that did favor these different colors, and that wasn't slide film as well. And the thing was, they already had in the past. They used to have Kodak Portra 400 VC, which stood for vivid color, and it was partnered with the NC, which is neutral color, which is what most Portra 400 is kind of based on. Now here, obviously you can see there's edited and unedited. It was a 10-year expiration, so it did lose a bit of sensitivity, so it was a bit darker than I was expecting. But here with this unedited shot, you do kind of see that you do get more of the blue from the jacket at the bottom, and the greens of the shirt are quite nice. And I don't think it would have been as rendered as nicely with as far as the colors go if I was just shooting the new Portra. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with the new Portra, but the VC version does have a different color palette, and it is kind of unique in that way. Like, see how the blue on her pants kind of really pop here, the green in that sunlight does as well. I don't think you would have got the same with the new Portra, and I do kind of wish there was more of this kind of different versions that they used to do a lot of back in the day, especially in the 90s, 80s, very early 2000s. They had a lot of options that we don't have today. Now, one thing I definitely noticed with the VC version of Portra is that it did have a cooler color palette, and I guess leaning towards a cooler side did help with the other colors coming through more so than the new Portra, which does lean to more of a warmer color palette. And so yeah, you do kind of still get the nice red trimming on this jacket. The yellow is quite nice, and I know I've shot here before with standard Portra and the yellow didn't come through as much as it did here. And obviously with the edited one, I did kind of warm it up just to favor those skin tones which aren't as favored in the VC version, but the other colors around it are. And it's all just about having another option, which these days we don't have as many as there were in the past, which is a shame. But Kodak did have to file for bankruptcy back in 2011 or 12, so there was a lot that they had to kind of whittle down, and they kind of had to go back to basics, which is where they really focused on Portra, which I believe the current new versions were released in 2010 or 11. And that's your Portra 400 and Portra 160. The Portra 800 is still the same formula it used to be, and it also is a bit more colorful than the current new versions, at least in my opinion, with the way I've shot it, which you would have seen in the previous episode that featured this photo shoot as well. And while it is cooler in color, I think there's a lot you can kind of play with, and I still was able to warm it up quite a bit, but also keeping those colors that would have been a bit more muted with the new Portra. I did quite like a lot of the shots I got in this shoot, but unfortunately with these last two locations coming up, Yeah, we were losing a lot of light. I probably should have started maybe an hour earlier than I did, but yeah, you never really know how things are gonna go. And yeah, I think we got some nice shots. The colors do come out quite nicely here because we're in the shade. It's definitely a lot cooler in color, but there's still a lot I was able to bring out in post. And of course, part of this is the way the images are scanned. That can affect the colors and the vibrance, which is one thing that I think we constantly have to remind ourselves, because a lot of us do kind of get fixated on the film look, but a lot of that is played with in the edit, which it was also played with in the darkroom when doing prints before the whole digital world kind of came to be. And I think it's one thing with that we shouldn't lose sight of, because the film is really just a starting point, and we can really play with it to kind of get whatever artistic vision we want. But yeah, I will say I do quite like how this Portra 400 VC turned out, and I do kind of wish it was more of a thing, but unfortunately it's not, so I'm going to stick to overexposing Portra 800. But it was kind of nice just to play around with this expired film. I was metering it at 200, and yeah, I think it did need a bit more light. Here's some other shots I've shot in this type of film before, and yeah, it is a bit cooler in color, as you can see here, but the reds, the greens, and a few other colors do kind of pop a bit more than they would if it was just the new Portra 400. But yeah, so I hope you liked the video, guys. Please let me know your thoughts on the film in the comments below, and also on the images, and please feel free to like and subscribe to this post notifications so you know when there's a new episode. Anyway, I'm Josh. This has been Frames Per Second. Just get out there, shoot some film.